Okay, so now we're going to look at speech marks. Okay, they're not as difficult as some people think. Now, when do we need to use speech marks? Well, when we need to quote what someone has said, or we can also quote what someone has written. And that's about it. So that's easy. Well, there's only one time that we need to use it, I suppose. But how do we actually use speech marks? Now, using speech marks is not too difficult, but we do have to be careful. First, we take the words that someone has said. Somebody said, "You can quote me if you like." Then we need to put this inside the speech marks. So we open them up at the beginning. And be careful. When you put the speech marks here, there is no space, there's no empty space between the speech marks and the first letter. There is no empty space there. Yeah. Then we have to decide if what they said is a normal sentence, a question, or an exclamation, and then choose the appropriate end punctuation. So if they were yelling it, we would use an exclamation. If they were asking a question, we'd of course use a question mark. And if it's normal, we'd use a full stop. Oh, but wait, this is not the end of my sentence. So I cannot use a full stop here. It's the end of the sentence that the person said, but it's not the end of my sentence that I'm writing. So I won't use a full stop. I use a comma. Then I close the speech marks. Then we add a phrase to show who was speaking. Said Jennifer. Now this is the end of my sentence, so I'm going to add my full stop. Okay? Open quotes, "You can quote me if you like, comma, close quotes, space, said Jennifer, full stop." There we go. Is there another way to do it? Yes, there is. You can take the words that someone has said. "Could I quote you, please?" Open this with the speech marks. Decide, is it a normal sentence, an exclamation, or is it a question? This one obviously is a question. And then we close the quotation marks. And then we add a phrase to show who was speaking. Asked the reporter. And now this is the end of my sentence, so I put a full stop here. Open quotes, "Could I quote you, please?" Question mark, close quotes. Asked the reporter, full stop. Is there even another way to do it? Yes, there are. There are other ways to do it. We could start with our phrase to say who was speaking. The reporter asked. Now we need to put a comma in straight away, because after this comes the quotation. So we need to keep our phrase where we are telling the reader who was speaking. We need to keep this separate from the words that the speaker said. Now we open our quotes. We write down the words that they said. "Could I quote you, please?" And decide, as usual, is it a question, an exclamation, or is it a normal sentence? This one, of course, is a question. And now we mustn't forget to close the quotation marks. So it's the same as the previous one. The only difference is, in the previous one, this phrase, "the reporter asked," was at the end. But in this one, we've started with the phrase, "the reporter asked." It's good to sometimes change them around from the beginning or the end to make your stories sound more interesting and more varied. So now complete the Google quiz questions about speech marks.